Message is for all of you who worry about privacy and identity in the XR domain. You're not alone. We are in this together and we need you. The big tech firms are building walls while we attempt to build bridges. Walls of monopoly cemented by billions of dollars being spent to collect massive amount of data on citizens around the world under the guise of research. And we have decided to stand up to them. My name is Kavya Pearlman, founder and CEO of XR Safety Initiative. On October 26th, we announced via our trustworthy journalism platform, Ready Hacker One, that a researcher from XR community gained root access to Oculus Quest 2 and is able to bypass Facebook login. XRSI's own researchers validated this jailbreak and to date remain steadfast to gather assurances to protect individuals who discovered these methods of jailbreak. We also learned that there are other researchers out there who have gained similar access and are unsure how to proceed without clear policies around the right to repair. I believe ethical hackers and cybersecurity researchers like myself are are the one and only hopes in finding flaws in XR ecosystems before the bad guys do. Facebook has been selling hardware for over 6 years now, but does not have a clear policy on jailbreak or right to repair. The question we got to ask is why jailbreak now? Why Quest 1? Why Quest 2 and not Quest 1? But before I answer that question, I want to share something with you. Exactly 4 days from now, the most significant event of 2020 will take place, the US presidential election. In a world where demagogues appeal to our worst instincts, conspiracy theories are peddled all over mainstream media through not just some antisocial elements, but via the loudest voices with millions of followers on social media. In an era where scientific inquiry and critical thinking is ending, and we are moving fast towards a point of singularity without a pause or a reflection on the risks and reward these technologies come along with this velocity. Democracy, which depends on the shared truth, is taking its last breath. And autocracy, which depends on the shared lies, is on the rise. Minorities, such as myself, are afraid to speak out the truth for the fear of retaliation from the billionaires and the most powerful people on planet Earth. This is the condition of our perceived reality. When it comes to XR, it all comes down to what kind of realities do we want to create. If we prioritize protection of identities over monopoly, tolerance over prejudice, humanity over greed, privacy over the race to make the next best killer app of XR, and safety over ignorances, then maybe, just maybe, we can extend realities in a trustworthy manner. We can still have virtual worlds for free speech and free expression where someone like myself doesn't have to fear for my life because I didn't fully comprehend that 70 plus page privacy policy, check the right boxes, or put my life at risk simply because I forgot to modify some default settings. When this happens, who is going to stand up for us? who is going to safeguard, who is going to protect these brave new worlds? In the next 40 to 50 minutes, I will reflect on these questions and share with you the importance of safeguarding extended realities. As you all know, we often fight about what should we call these technologies. And so XRSI in 2019, this was the first step we took to create common understanding, is to create the definitions of augmented, virtual, and mixed reality. So I would reiterate here for anyone who is new or unfamiliar, VR provides a full immersion into digital artificial environment. Augmented reality is a virtual digital object overlaid on top of real world environment. And mixed reality, where you could actually manipulate the environment, the real environment, using VR to operate, let's say, like a forklift. We know that collectively, XR is changing lives. It's transforming many domains. In the interest of time, I'll probably just talk about a couple. And so let's think about healthcare. Already, people are using these technologies to read EEG, EKG type of data and biometric data off of our health, off of our bodies through these devices, through augmented reality, through virtual reality, and trying to heal people. And I believe that's a noble cause. And I believe we need to innovate where we need to, in a post COVID world, be together yet be apart. And these technologies enable us to be able to do so. What about automotive? There are level 5 testing, which is, completely unmanned autonomous vehicle. Those would not be possible if it wasn't for virtual reality, because you can now run simulations and actually collect data that will allow us to actually move or test these vehicles in an environment where otherwise we couldn't, because the variables involved in those environments would be human beings and it would be unsafe. There are several other domains that are being transformed, such as education, tourism, real estate. Imagine if you could just visit an apartment in LA without having to take a flight or even look at the fixture of the lighting and everything else. So, needless to say, XR is changing life. However, it's bringing new risks. Think about privacy when you can simply hold up a phone and capture your reality all around you. These VR headsets also have inside out tracking. They capture every minute detail of the surrounding environment, along with how you tilt your head, how you move, at basically creating an accurate, almost like a fingerprint of a human being. With the rise of data breaches and hacking, security is at stake. And are not, um, if these devices are not made properly, then that's precisely what's going to happen. The bad guys are going to take hold of this data and these devices. And then who is there to protect us? Identity. This is a big one for personally for me, because overnight, um, sometimes when you share your identity and your minority and you're forced to share your identity online, people can not only dox you, harass you, but trust me when I say this, because it happened to me, they can actually threaten you with your life simply because you happen to wear a certain kind of clothing or pray to certain kind of god. And these type of identities, the things that are responsible for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor type of attacks and incidents, these are the same biases that are now going into our XR data sets. Before I go to next slide, this is a slide that I share with a lot of my friends in a hope that they will understand how these technologies are influencing our democracies. This is a slide from 2016, at which point I was over at Facebook and working as a third party security consultant. And basically, over time, over the years, we witnessed what exactly happened there.
We can segment further. We can look at what issue they care about. Gun rights I selected. That narrows the field slightly more. And now we know that we need a message on gun rights. It needs to be a persuasion message, and it needs to be nuanced according to the certain personality that we're interested in. And we can see where these people are on the map. If we wanted to drill down further, we could resolve the data to an individual level, where we have somewhere close to 4 or 5,000 data points on every adult in the United States. Finally, addressable ad technology. This is the ability to take all this offline data and to match it to drive communications. Blanket advertising. Blanket advertising, the idea that 100 million people receive the same piece of direct mail, the same television advert, the same digital advert, is dead. My children will certainly never ever understand this concept of mass communication. Today, communication is becoming ever increasingly targeted. It's being individualized for every single person in this room. So you will no longer be receiving adverts on products and services that you don't care about. Rather, you'll only receive adverts that not only are on the products and services, or in the case of elections, issues that you care about most, but that have been nuanced in order to reflect the way you see the world. We're able to match offline data to cookies to drive digital advertising, social media banners and the like. We can obviously use this data to inform direct mail purchases. So a husband in a household can receive a piece of mail, but his wife can receive a different piece of mail, possibly even on the same issue. Most exciting of all, probably, is the fact that we can take this data and match it to set-top box viewing data. That's television or cable data. Every time you watch TV, the programs that you're watching are being recorded, and that information is being sent back to your cable provider. And we can match what you watch in a way that we can begin to select programs to advertise in that have the highest density of the target audience that we're trying to reach. This not only dramatically reduces the cost of your advertising, but of course improves the return on investment. So what were the results? Well, Ted Cruz employed our data, our behavioral insights, to drive not just his TV and his digital, but his field operations, his get out the vote, his voter persuasion, his donation fundraising efforts, and his resource allocation. And all of this meant that he started from a base of less than 5% and had a very slow and steady but firm rise to above 35%, making him obviously the second most threatening contender in the race. Now, clearly the Cruz campaign is over now, but what I can tell you is that of the two candidates left in this election, one of them is using these technologies, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they impact the next 7 weeks. Thank you.
This was the CEO, the former CEO of Cambridge Analytica, Alexander Nix. And now we all know how these technologies influenced our elections, undermined our democracies. So Cambridge Analytica may have now turned into a new name, but these technologies continued to evolve and rested in the hands of the same exact technology firms that were responsible for, at the first place, undermining our democracies. We have to wonder what all kinds of data, as one of my colleague, Avi Barziv, says, the eyes are the prize. Eye tracking technology is the advertising's holy grail. They give away so much data with pupil dilation to, iris sensitivity and whatnot. And these devices have the capabilities now to actually track us, track us through the way we gaze at something. And as you know, some XR companies have already started to collect body motion data, sensor data. And while this may be used to help improve these technologies, but in the wrong hands, as we just saw, it can cause tremendous damage. What kind of data are we talking about here? We're talking about what we standardize with our recent efforts is biometrically inferred data, where even a blink of an eye, at what gesture, at what point, at what visual did you blink your eye, could infer what kind of mood you're in, what things you like, what you things don't like. So beyond that, there is many properties that are related to biometrically inferred data. People can infer your age, your cultural background, oftentimes even your religious belief system, depending on how you stare or gaze at something, your physical health. Imagine if the same data was then shared by your insurance provider, and then the insurance provider denied you coverage because they already knew that a few years from now or a few months from now, you're going to have a stroke, or that you have a condition, a pre existing condition that they would rather not cover. Geographic location, I mean level of sleepiness, skills, all of this biometrically inferred data based on your gait. In fact, gait data can actually accurately identify you better than your fingerprints. This is a whole new level of data mining. We talked about 5,000 data points. What we're looking at here, according to a Stanford University study, is in 20 minutes in VR, you can now have over 2 million of unique recordings of a body language. So this is a whole new level of data points that can be gathered through these head mounted display goggles. And we haven't even done enough research for the augmented reality glasses. That would be a constant, it is already an era of constant reality capture. So we have to pause and reflect. If nobody else chooses to, I compel you to. Let's take a look. What exactly is at stake?
The real game changer was Cambridge Analytica.
They worked for the Trump campaign and for the Brexit campaign.
They started using information warfare.
Cambridge Analytica claimed to have 5,000 data points on every American voter.
I started tracking down all these Cambridge Analytica ex-employees.
Someone else that you should be calling to committee is Brittany Kaiser.
Brittany Kaiser, once a key player inside Cambridge Analytica, casting herself as a whistleblower.
The reason why Google and Facebook are the most powerful companies in the world is because last year data surpassed oil in value. Data is the most valuable asset on earth. We targeted those whose minds we thought we could change until they saw the world the way we wanted them to. I do know that the targeting tool was considered a weapon.
There is a possibility that the American public had been experimented on.
This is becoming a criminal matter. When people see the extent of the surveillance, I think they're going to be shocked.
And I still fear for your life. Yeah, the powerful people that are involved. But I can't keep quiet just because it will make powerful people mad. These rights should be considered just fundamental rights. This is about the integrity of our democracy. These platforms which were created to connect us have now been weaponized. It's impossible to know what is what because nothing is what it seems.
And nothing is what it seems. Yet the same people tell us that they are not going to be the arbiter of the truth and remove a specific type of content or proactively address some of these issues. Think about what would the next Cambridge Analytica look like? And then who is going to be the arbiter of our reality? We have to ask, are regulations the answer? Do we have regulations around these technologies? And I can tell you, and I'm sure you already know, regardless of GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, California Consumer Privacy Act, NIST framework, FERPA, which is a federal education related act, we don't have enough regulations. In fact, when I dug up, there was a meeting that took place in 2016 where a few white men who are technologists and regulators, they met and they talked about augmented reality, and what they decided, it is too early to create any kind of regulation because that will stifle innovation. And I'm of the same opinion, but what I do believe is that it is time that we discuss and we implement some of the baseline measures, and while we wait for regulations, enforce some kind of a ethical measures that will allow us to proactively address harassment, bullying, all of these awful things that currently exist in our society, undermine our democracies. The same things are coming for XR. And that's why at XRSI, we took it upon ourselves to help build safe and immersive environments. That is our mission. And we also focus on the inclusion aspect of it as we do it. Those of who don't know much about XRSI, we are a 501c3 worldwide nonprofit. We have three principles, very simple. We're unbiased, we're ethical, and we're consistent with our mission, which is to help build safe, immersive environments. And we help build these immersive and inclusive environments uh, to help stakeholders build experiences and help them inform, make pragmatic decisions, discover novel cybersecurity, privacy, and ethical risks, and propose potential solutions to mitigate them. XRSI being one such first global effort is uniquely positioned to provide impartial, practical information about XR and spatial computing related risks related to individuals, universities, um, big tech firms, and governments around the world. One of the few efforts that we did is our privacy framework. Just about a few hours ago, my colleague Alina Kadlubski talked about the XRSI privacy framework. XRSI privacy framework is not a compliance mandate, I would say, yet. What we do propose, however, is a baseline measure that will allow organizations to proactively create products that bake privacy within it. It proposes a very simplified language that can further be drilled down and handed over to designers and engineers for them to understand, what does privacy mean? What exactly is it that they have to do in order to create a future that is private? Because it's easy to put those big words on a giant wall in a big stage. But I would urge these big tech firms to adopt what we propose in a proactive manner. This is what a privacy framework, XRSI privacy framework, looks like, and it is still in development. We've only rolled out what I would call is the definition and an outline, and we are working towards the version 1.1. So within the XRSI privacy framework, we have four of these pillars, focus areas, you can say, where we assess risk, where inform people, manage risk, and then prevent risk, which is a big one. It is a shift away from protecting. We need to, in an era where seeing is no longer believing and you can't unsee things, we need to prevent. We need to prevent harm. We need to protect identities and prevent disclosure of identities. And those are the types of considerations that we've taken into account as we built this privacy framework together with University of Michigan, University of Georgia Tech, and many other organizations and individuals who have graciously contributed free knowledge to just simply help build a safe and private future. XRSI privacy framework has 4 focus areas, 14 functions, and about a set of approximately 125 control items. And these control items are currently in development, where we are looking at creating a very comprehensive, detailed guideline, something that a director, uh, which I was at one point, was dealing with, virtual reality type of environment back at Linden Lab, the creator of Second Life, which is the very first oldest existing virtual world. And I needed to rely on these type of frameworks in order to guide the engineers, guide the folks, designers, to bake privacy within the products. This framework is agile, it's iterative, it is community driven, and we are focusing on solutions. This framework takes into consideration what we discovered in May, what we have been discovering actually, but we put together a immersive standard, standard for immersive technologies via CyberXR Coalition, yet another one of our programs led by my really good friend and an amazing leader, April Boyd Nerona. So together with her and many other organizations, we put together 5 categories of these novel risks that are coming for XR: legal, human risk, societal risk, information risk, financial risk, the details of which some of them are yet to be researched in the context of extended reality. However, we have outlined these risks, and now as we build the privacy framework, we try to comprehend, try to understand how these risks impact privacy. So I urge you to join us on our next session, which is going to take place, and this probably would be easy to remember, Friday, the 13th of November. We're going to conduct a session, which is a guidance session to further develop Privacy Framework version 1.1, together with Alina Kadlubski, Jeremy Nelson from University of Michigan, and our XRSI advisor, Ryan Wegner, and myself. I would provide guidance to the community and urge them and solicit them to, together with us, build the next version of this XRSI privacy framework, for which we would be giving away $12,500 to various individuals, whoever create the submission and provide those submission, and we accept them. Privacy is like oxygen. It's invisible and easy to ignore until it's taken away. Let's talk about safety now. And when I say safety, I mean, I'm not talking about just physical safety. I'm talking about safety of our well being, safety of our devices, safety of our individuality, safety of things that are impacted by hacking sometimes, or third party risks, such as Cambridge Analytica. And that's why we talk about safety when it comes to XR. I will share with you in a moment. In the past, we have XR safety initiatives advisor, senior advisor, Ibrahim Begili, discovered cyber attacks in the as a proof of concept, not in the wild, discovered cyber attacks and documented it. These are novel cyber attacks. And these are the cyber attacks that we still don't know if some of the platforms, because we have not investigated enough. So we have not done enough research to establish, do these cyber attacks happen in the wild or whatnot? So the question is, we have to conduct this kind of research and establish more and more of these risks and stay ahead of the bad guys. And before I go ahead, I want to play this clip. And I was talking about safety and not just security. So I want to play this clip from Augmented World Expo, where together with Marco Magnano, who is the lead of Ready Hacker One, our immersive journalism platform that just recently did the disclosure on the jailbreak. Um, so we basically were at Augmented World Expo playing a video game. I want you to take a look at this and realize what all could go wrong if some technology stops functioning. So this was the game Ghost. Together with Marco, I was just basically shooting bugs in a VR environment. We were in a social setting. And so that visual should point to you that the attack surface is not no longer limited to our devices or our network. It has now expanded to our living room, to our surroundings. And so therefore, it is about safety and not just security. And this goes for not just VR attack surface, it goes for AR attack surface as well, as we are going to now in the very near future be walking around with augmented reality glasses and interacting with our perceived reality. There is a lot that could go wrong. So it is again about safety. Talking about the kind of cyber attacks were discovered back in the days by Abraham's team, um, they basically establish foothold on the machine. And these cyber attacks were discovered for the tethered virtual reality headsets, where they were able to gain control of the machine and manipulate configuration, set up command and control server, and basically snoop on various individuals that were in the VR environment. These are, few of the HMDs had mounted display goggles that they use, few of the platforms that they use, such as Steam VR, OpenVR, to over and over establish these attacks and document them. What were those novel attacks? Tracker attack, where you could actually look exactly where you are. How do they do that? So Vive HMD has a front-facing camera. I'm talking about the tethered headsets. So front-facing camera, and they were able to successfully hijack that. Chaperone attack, where they could shrink, expand, or remove your safety boundaries. Human joystick attack and overlay attack. This is exactly what I'm talking about, the front facing camera, where you could turn the camera on, stream video feed back to, whoever is the attacker, in this case, Abraham's team, look inside the room, which, these days, especially when we talk about the XR glasses, this is something that I'm really concerned about. What all would be with our permission, what would be without our permission. And in this context, how do you even gather consent? So all of those things get really interesting when we put together this idea of a attacker being able to take over our devices. Chaperone attack, as I just mentioned, in every virtual reality head-mounted display or a platform, it offers to us something called as the safety boundary, which basically protects you from if you step too far or step away from your safe surface, safe area, then it would automatically pop up and kind of like a warning. But Abraham's team was able to expand, shrink, and edit and remove these boundaries. Thus far, we've only recorded, there has only been a record of one confirmed death in Russia, but we will never know whether there was a foul play involved because we just don't do this kind of forensic investigation. And as mass adoption happens, more and more people use these devices, we're absolutely going to have to go there because this is the next dimension of crime as well. This is how people could even be murdered and targeted using these devices tracking them, identifying them, and then eventually targeting them and finding out when are not people inside VR or not. Let's look at another attack, which in combination with few other attacks could be really deadly. Human joystick attack. So this is the data they collected. If you see the green dot, this is where the subject is supposed to be, but they were able to modify configs and successfully able to move the subject all the way across the room without their knowledge. They called it human joystick attack. And they established this for few VR platforms. And finally, an overlay attack where one could actually hijack your entire, uh, vision, the things that you see, and basically overlay it with something else. This could actually be a new form of ransomware, where the attacker knows that you're looking at something very, very sensitive and would basically hold you for ransom until you let up or render your device useless. So after all of this, lessons, we established three care areas of risk mitigation: data protection, where we ensure the input and output data is actually protected. What about the third parties? The data that is shared with the third party, that has to be protected as well. Then user interaction protection, because these are environments, especially in a social VR environment, there are individuals are sharing data with each other. Creators are now responsible to create these environments. What if they embed some kind of a malicious attachment on a chair, virtual chair, or any other virtual objects, and you click that to only install a malicious code? So those are the kind of things that could really go wrong. Device protection. Of course, one could tamper with your device. And what about the login and authentication? How does that actually work out? Because we recently have seen that a mandated login could then restrict all of our data to be in the hands of a very powerful player. And then thereafter, we're simply at their mercy, that to what would they do with the data. And we know that there are certain players in the space that are just not the good guardians of our data. Let's talk about another major subject, which is ethics. Ethics come into play because there are the regulations may not be enough. We need to establish what kind of a code of conduct do we have to abide by in these virtual environments. There is, sexual assault that women experience when they enter some of these virtual reality environments. So, what are the ethics around these things, and whose responsibility is it to create these rule sets and to implement that in a way that technology helps us stay safe within the context of virtual world? Um, the virtual domain brings new threats, which is, especially for children. There are incidents that we have noticed before in Roblox and other, gaming environments. But as we move forward, these kinds of threats where, you don't just necessarily share like a physical space, but you're sharing your, virtual space with other children or human being, the harassment, the bullying, social engineering. In fact, we are concerned, highly concerned about pedophilic activities that could happen in these environments. So all the real world threats are absolutely going to come to virtual environments. But of course, it does offer new opportunities as well, because it is kind of documented and noted. And I do not have the data, but I know that Courtney Cogburn from Columbia University, she talks about how virtual reality can be used to create empathy, and used to create embody an African American person and feel like what they might be going through. While you may never be able to establish what a person goes through when they are pulled over and not, but the recreation of such an experience can be really eye-opening, maybe opening a window to where empathy can eventually emerge. So there are opportunities that these technologies offer. And now, when we talk about ethics, we have this crossroad that we are standing at. Just about yesterday, day before yesterday, Kanye West sent a birthday present to Kim Kardashian, where he basically brought her father, her dead father, as a hologram and created a surprise. Well, this is a video I want to show you from a Korean mother who was put into VR to experience a communion with her dead daughter. So, question we got to ask is, do we trust these technology companies that they would not weaponize our emotions? And then even if we do we take consent of the dead people, and who would take consent? Check this out.
엄마 어디 있었어? 엄마 내 생각했어? 맨날 엄마 많이 보고 싶었어. 엄마도 나 보고 싶었어. 나는 잘 있었어? 엄마 나연이 보고 싶었어.
This is very difficult for some people to watch. In fact, I played this video back, in March at University of Michigan, and it was really hard for a mother to witness this kind of a, use of technology. And I can only imagine what would people pay to experience some, you know, experience like this with somebody who is dead already. And then what would be the impact? And what are our ethical, moral obligations as we recreate the dead? Maybe for Kim Kardashian, it was a great, wonderful surprise. But I don't know if I would like that kind of surprise. And I don't know how my mental state, my psychological well being would be after I experience something so visceral, too personal, and at many levels, very disturbing. Anyhow, we have to also create ethics for spectators because when we are in these virtual environments and using these head mounted display goggles, the people around us have a moral and ethical responsibility to understand that we are experiencing an extended reality, which is very similar to our perceived reality. It is compelling as is, and they should not just grope or touch or disturb you so that you're startled or something like that. And we have not yet normalized these ideas. So in order to safeguard ourselves, not just inside but also outside these environments, we need to cultivate this spectator culture and inform people what are the dangers of moving somebody while they are in the VR, or pushing them, or that could actually really hurt somebody, or that could trigger a PTSD if you touch them inappropriately. So this is very, very clear that we need to build a spectator culture. What else we need to build? When we are building extended realities, we need to build inclusion. We need to make sure that people with diverse backgrounds are part of it. And so our current realities and our extended realities need to reflect this. Finally, we need to make sure that we have our rights to be able to explore these multiverses in a safe manner, the rights to actually, expose the limits of XR. And this is where our trustworthy, immersive media platform comes into play. Because when Twitter and Facebook and all of the platform are just looking for clickbait and are looking to just grab your attention by any means, where will you go to find the truth of XR? This is exactly why XRSI started this platform called Ready Hacker One. This is going to forever be our communication hub that we use to communicate with individuals, industries, big tech firms, governments, and then we'll put out information that may not be available elsewhere. And we'll put out information that is much more relevant than some clickbait. We'll put out information that you can trust, not just opinions, but a fact-based, a risk-based, information-driven, a critical perspective, so that allows you to think critically about these extended realities. And with that, I would like to I would like to inform you that we need to stay ahead and keep up with these risks that come along with these virtual realities. So if I were to go back to my initial question, who is going to safeguard these realities? It is going to be all of us. And it is going to be each one of us, and not just myself, not just Ready Hacker One or XR Safety Initiative or some big tech firm or the governments. It is going to be upon all of us. The right to anonymity, right to data protection, and the right to own our own XR devices. These rights today, these rights are threatened by billionaires who desire to control the immersive domains. So allow me to leave you with a suggestion for a different aim for XR. The ultimate aim for XR should be to make sure that people are not targeted, not harassed, and not murdered because who they are, where they come from, or who they love and how they pray. And it is all going to begin with demanding our rights, asking for the ability to choose beyond just a mandated login that puts us in the closed walls of monopoly and at the mercy of an organization with a track record of causing genocide and undermining democracies. I urge you to stand up with me and with XRSI to demand for your rights. And we may or may not win this struggle, but when we look back a few years from now, at least we won't regret that we remained complacent or never even tried. Thank you.